When we're underway and I walk around the ship, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, if you're here, who's driving the ship? And the answer is the officer of the watch. We have a minimum of 3 very qualified and licensed officers manning the bridge at all times. 3 different teams rotate every 4 hours on and 8 hours off. The teams are made up of an officer of the watch, assistant officer of the watch, and a quartermaster or lookout. The terms steering, navigating, maneuvering, or just to keep it in layman's term, driving is used. There are several different methods that we use to quote-unquote drive. The first, and what everyone is interested in, is always the ship's wheel or helm. Surprising to most, it's smaller than the wheel in your car. It doesn't have to be the gigantic wooden wheel with spokes of back in the day, because today everything is electronically linked. It's still made out of wood though, at least on the edge. The wheel is usually used when we pick up the pilot until we're close to the pier, and then again after we've left the pier until we drop the pilot off. A smaller version of the wheel is, you guessed it, called the mini wheel. It's the same idea as the helm. Turn the wheel to port and the ship will go to the left. Turn the wheel to starboard and the ship will go to the right. The third method is the ectus, which is basically a digitized chart computer system which has replaced paper charts. There are no longer paper charts used for navigation on any of our celebrity ships. In the ectus system, we can plan a specific route, double check it and make sure that it doesn't pass over any land, and when we engage the system, the computer will keep us on the red dotted line or track, plus or minus 5 meters at all times. Because it's so precise and the ship is constantly adjusting to stay on the track, it means that it's not the most fuel-efficient option. For that reason, we tend to use the autopilot more often. The officer of the watch puts in the heading they want to steer, and the ship will maintain that heading. But the wind and the currents could affect the actual course by pushing the ship further away from the track, so the officer of the watch must monitor it to ensure that we're still on the intended track that we want to be. Once we get to a port, that's when the real fun begins. Most people assume that the pilot does the docking and undocking of the ship. The pilot's role in navigation on board comes up frequently. We take pilots coming and going from the ports of call. When the ship is approaching a port, we open the same shell door on the side of the ship, usually around where the gangway is located, and we put out a ladder and the pilot climbs on. We bring them up to the bridge, give them a briefing on the status of the ship, and make them part of our team. They in turn provide us with information about the port, including weather, tides, currents, mooring arrangements, expected traffic, and any updates to navigation aids, for example if they've moved a buoy. Once we're alongside, the pilot will disembark and then come back again just before departure. The pilot boat will follow the ship out and take the pilot off safely after we've left the pier and past the sea buoy. When it comes to the actual maneuvers of the ship's docking and undocking, we split these maneuvers between our own bridge officers because it's kind of the most fun part of the job besides blowing the horn, obviously. I'll take 40 to 50% of the maneuvers, and the remaining 50 to 60% I assign to everyone from the second in command, which is our staff captain, to the third officer, so that they have the experience of docking and undocking the ship. That way, by the time the most junior officer will reach the position as master, they have hundreds of maneuvers under their belts. When we approach the pier, the bridge officer who will perform the docking will take the con or the conduct from the pilot. Then we switch to maneuvering mode, which gives us individualized control of the ship's propulsion, which in our case are the azipods or azimuthing propellers. What that means is that they rotate a full 360 degrees, so we don't need stern thrusters. We have a lot of power at our disposal. The Celebrity Edge has a total of nearly 72,000 horsepower, and each of our 4 bow thrusters is around 4,800 horsepower. That's right, we go around beating our chest a lot. It also means that we don't need tugs to assist unless the weather is really not cooperating, with excessive winds usually above 35 knots on the side of the ship. That's when we'll take a tugboat because it's affordable insurance. With all that power and the enormous responsibility, we have a little something special to assist the officer that you won't find on all ships, and that is Bug Naked, also known as the maneuvering support animal. She has a keen sense and loves to stand beside whoever is doing the maneuver and I've had officers tell me that she absorbs the anxiety that comes with the pressure of performing for the first time. Now, in some of the ports, we can't dock because maybe there isn't a pier. We have the option to drop the anchor, or we can use the DP, or Dynamic Position System. The DP uses GPS and a computer that synchronizes the propellers and thrusters to keep us exactly where we want to stay without having to put an anchor on the ocean bed. The system will fight against the elements to keep us in that exact location until we're ready to leave. We can maneuver using all methods from the center cockpit, but when we're close to the pier, we can transfer the controls to either the port or starboard bridge wings, since they have identical equipment, and we can keep an eye on the side of the ship when we're coming alongside or departing the pier. One of the most satisfying aspects of maneuvering a ship like Celebrity Edge is being part of the junior officer's experience and success. We celebrate each of the firsts by giving them a memento to remember it by. Something along the lines of a key to the ship in the form of a keychain, because there really isn't a key to start the ship, or a license plate from the port of call that they've just done the maneuver, because you should never forget your first. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we drive. Stay tuned for the next episode of How I See It, where we'll take a closer look at the Azipods. And until then, this is your captain, wishing you fair winds and following seas.
If you've ever sailed on a cruise ship, you could almost count on the fact that the captain and the officers would almost always be male. It was part of the culture, in fact, a seagoing tradition. So much so that the captain seemed almost out of central casting. Their images of command and control were often used to sell cruises. Their photos featured prominently in cruise ship catalogs. And then, about 4 years ago, a new captain came on board.
Pilot Ezekan, 198.
The first American woman to command a cruise ship. And she has a compelling story to tell. Her name, Kate McHugh.
I got interested in becoming a captain when I went on my first cruise at 12 years old. And when we got off the ship and we were packing the car to drive home, I said to my dad, I know what I want to be when I grow up. And he said, what's that? I said, you know the person that plans all the fun events on board the ship? He said, yeah. The cruise director? I said, yeah. He said, well, you could do anything you want, including drive the thing. And that's where the seed was planted. And so I started school at 17. I went to California Maritime Academy, and 19 years later, I was given my very first command of the Celebrity Summit in 2015.
And then, when Celebrity Cruise Lines introduced its newest ship, the Edge, it wasn't long before they announced its captain.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your Captain Kate speaking from the bridge.
Captain Kate, as she's called, is a no-nonsense, hands-on commander.
Because of the flood, and I'll be using 3 bow thrusters, and we'll have 4 engines online just like we had for arrival this morning.
And you can find her just about everywhere on the ship. Not just meeting with passengers during formal onboard events, but having extended conversations with them. She's not just the captain, but also Celebrity's Goodwill Ambassador.
Hi! How cute are you?
But some passengers are still coming to grips with the idea that the captain is a woman.
I actually had a woman who, I was in the shops, and she came up and she asked me if I could help her with a watch because she assumed that I worked in the shops. And in the end, I sold her a watch, and when I walked away, she still didn't know that I was the captain.
Maybe she'll be watching now and she'll figure it out.
That'd be funny. We could.
Smile, Brianna.
Awesome.
But the Celebrity Cruise Line CEO, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, there's nothing funny about Kate's responsibilities.
She's a very serious nautical navigator, yes.
I mean, this is a $1.2 billion piece of equipment.
Yes, it is, and she is responsible for the lives of our crew and our guests. And that is almost 4,500 people, and that is a serious job. And I've not met anyone, men or woman, who does it like Kate.
You have a special friend on board.
I do. I always travel with 3 things: my Louboutin shoes, my mermaid tail, and my naked cat, Bug Naked.
Could you please explain that?
The Louboutins are my standard uniform issue. The mermaid tail is something that I use when I go out in port, It kind of pushes me to experience the ports a little bit differently than normal. And then Bug Naked, my naked cat, she's like having family around 24/7.
Wait a second, get a cat. I want a picture of this. Here, please.
And this is no ordinary feline. Captain Kate makes sure Bug Naked is always dressed for the occasion.
This is the gang, everybody.
On the cruise I was on, there were two special passengers on board. Kate's parents and her father, especially proud that his daughter is now considered a trailblazer.
Cool.
What do you think Kate being a captain says?
Oh, sky's the limit.
You wanted to do that,
I was too old when I applied.
but you wanted to.
Oh, yeah.
So now you get to live your dream
Of course, you know, you get to live vicariously.
and get emotional.
And what about that small percentage of captains who are women?
Well, we already have just about 20% of our bridge as women now, but we continue to increase the number of women. We continue to recruit. We're not stopping at 22%. I'd like to get into the mid-30s. I'm not sure if we'll ever get to 50%, just because, again,
The talent pool's not there
the
yet.
talent pool is not there yet.
But that percentage of female officers changed dramatically recently. On March 8th, in support of International Women's Day, the Edge sailed into Fort Lauderdale on her regular schedule with Captain Kate in command. What was different? For the first time ever, the entire complement of ship's officers, all 27, were women.
So we have enough to actually woe-man the ship.
Can I hear that again?
We will woe-man the ship.
With 100%.
100%, yeah.
That's making a statement.
It is. It is. And honestly, I look forward to the day where it's not a female captain, it's just captain.